Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube today talking NFL draft sleepers. Sam, how you doing, man?
Doing good. How about you, Steve? The people,
Doing
they
great.
responded. They responded to your claim. You wanted more than one person to say they enjoyed Mug Talk, and more than one person did.
Half the comments on yesterday's show, I believe, were mug related. So, where are you? Check your mug. I'm back.
Oh, I got a banger today.
Back to my Yeti here. Oh, look at that. That's
the best
is
Disney
that your
movie
daughter's?
ever.
That's the best one? Robin Hood?
Robin Hood's awesome.
Yeah. That was one of the first ones I think our kids actually watched over and over again. I think Beauty and the Beast, I think, was my my favorite growing up. Don't usually admit that out in public, so let's just keep that between us. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so mug, check your mug, everybody. Let us know what you're drinking out of today. Some housekeeping at the top of the show here, Sam. Do you have something else? You looked like you're about to say something. Oh. Draft night, 2 weeks from today. We are officially 2 weeks out, Sam. It always sneaks up on you, doesn't it, the draft? But we're 2 weeks out, and we're going to be live right here on this channel, right here on the Check the Mic YouTube channel. So our plan is to be live Thursday night. We'll be going live probably an hour before the draft. I want to make sure you guys get in, get comfy. Just make sure you're knowing that we're going to be live throughout the draft. We're going to watch it together Thursday night and Friday night. And then we're going to press stop and then press record pretty much immediately. Start a new feed. We don't even have to reset anything because we're probably going to be at home. And just start right away and recap the draft right away. So that'll be the audio version Thursday and Friday night. I'm looking forward to it. 2 weeks out, man. You excited?
Yeah. It should be fun. I mean, we're going to be all the content all the time. Our own, our own YouTube, not having to kowtow to anybody else, any other deals. We just content, just live to the draft, react to the draft. We'll do it all over again the next day. And
then Saturday too. I mean, day 3, you never know. We're not going to be sitting there for 6 hours. We're not going to do an all-day stream, but we'll probably recap every round, talk about big picks, and then we'll get right into our recap. So we'll have I can't wait to see how many hours of content we put out. It'll probably be 25 to 30 hours of content, throughout the entire draft weekend, if not more. So be sure to hit the subscribe button if you have not already. And if you're listening, if you're just an audio listener, you're going to want to get to the YouTube channel to hang out with us and be with us live on Thursday and Friday night of the draft. Next week, we'll do our mock draft Monday. I got my mock coming out. I'll do my mock live on Monday morning. Might do a special round 2. We'll see. Might have a bonus episode next week. And then Dane Brugler is coming on Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. We're going to start 30 minutes early live Wednesday morning at 10. We're going to get Dane. He unleashed the beast yesterday. If you haven't checked that out over at The Athletic, be sure to do that. And then we'll take our listener draft bets. I'm surprised how many have already come in. Several bets have come in already from our listeners, which I love. And there's some good ones. Put your money where your mouth is. If you have a bold take, especially about your team, my team will definitely draft this position or won't draft this position. If you have a bold take, be sure to email us, checkthemic@the33team.com, and we will accumulate all those and go through those next Wednesday. We'll put some swag on the line, some Check the Mic merch. And if you guys have coffee or something you want to put on the line, whatever it might be, we'll have some fun with that next week on Wednesday.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Now, last thing, Spotify. If you're a Spotify listener and now a viewer, Spotify has us on video as well. Leave a comment on the episode. We're starting to grow on Spotify. Spotify is trying to grow things a little bit more with the video aspect of things. And if you leave a comment, it helps grow over there as well. And it helps pay the bills for Austin Gale, right? Spotify, The Ringer. We're just trying to do Austin Gale, old friend, do him a solid. So if you're on Spotify, leave a comment. Let us know how the experience is over there as well, because they're really trying to grow things in the podcast world.
Much though we like Austin, perhaps more importantly, I think it pays the bills for us, which is probably the more relevant thing.
You show a little humility and you defer it to other people, right? Rather than begging.
I just, given Austin's headhunting life, I think he's okay for the Bills.
No, he's doing great. Anyway, anything else before we get going?
Let's go.
All right. So today we're talking sleepers. And we got to put a whole bunch of caveats in place here. Like, what is a sleeper in 2025? Because I guarantee we're going to say a name and you're going to be, oh, this guy is like number 3 on my board. And I've had that since September. Like, there's always somebody somewhere who loves all of these players. It's not like the 1999 draft that I keep tweeting out where this guy comes out of nowhere. Nobody's literally ever heard of him except the one team that was scouting him. So how would you define a sleeper at this point in the guys that we're going to be talking about here?
Yeah, well, in the graphic of this video, but I don't think it made it to the headline or the title of the video. The term hidden gems, I think, is a good one. Like, this is just underrated, under the radar prospects, guys that, a lot of people, there's a whole spectrum of draft interest, right? There are the people that just kind of familiarize themselves with the top of the draft, the first sort of 30, 50 names. That's why, people put out their top 50s. This is the most 50 relevant people you're going to be hearing for night 1 into day 2, all those kinds of things. And that's kind of where people stop. That's the depth of their knowledge, and that's fine. Then there's people that, watch college football, that know everybody, that, are 234 wide receivers into Dane Brugler's The Beast and still know who we're talking about. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. And for those people, there are no sleepers. They know everybody. The only sleeper is, some like Division III kid that they've never seen and nobody's ever heard of. And that's fine, but that's not most people. And then, there's the spectrum in the middle. So to me, a sleeper or hidden gem, it's someone that's outside of that first group, someone that's not in the top 50, probably not in the top 100, is, a day 2 or a day 3 more likely option for somebody, but still shows something. And obviously, when you're talking about, day 3 players, the chances of any of these guys working out are minimal, right? The hit rate for a day 3 player is awful for good reasons, right? All the good players or all the good prospects are gone in the first 2 days. Obviously, you can, everyone can come up with day 3 players that do hit, Tom Brady, for example. But the strike rate is awful. So yeah, most of these guys we're going to talk about will probably not end up being good NFL players, but you're latching onto something, whether it's the athleticism, whether it's, a certain amount of playmaking ability, whatever it is you've seen that you like, there's something about these guys to like and to be interested in. And that's basically it for me.
Yeah. All right, great. And I have someone on there that's probably not even a day 3 guy, may even be a day 2. But there's reasons, right? So listen, it's our own show. We can do whatever we want. We could call anybody a sleeper. I could call Travis Hunter. People are sleeping on Travis Hunter. No, I wouldn't go that far. But we can have anybody.
Like, there is no definition. Like, there's no like working parameters for what a sleeper actually is. Yeah, I think I think there's definitely things that a sleeper is not. For example, Travis Hunter. But but I think it's pretty open to interpretation what a sleeper is.
All right, man. Well, let's get to it. I mean, some of these players we've talked about in our other position rankings, other players we haven't discussed a ton. But let's start. The first sleeper, you and I came up with a list together. And then I went to Twitter this morning, and I asked for several. I asked the people. You retweeted it out. I want to go through the people's list on Twitter as well, maybe react to some of that. And of course, in the chat, give us your sleepers, anybody that you really like. I see one being mentioned that we might mention later in the draft in the show already. So it's great. Drop them in as you go. Quandarius Q. Robinson is first up. Edge rusher for Alabama. Yes, we did the edge rush show yesterday. Yes, he was both of our sleepers in the rankings here, but let's rehash what we like about Q as a sleeper prospect.
Yeah, we talked about him yesterday a little bit. He is the perfect kind of definition of a sleeper, where you turn on the tape and you're like, this guy looks like a day 1 player. This guy looks like a first round prospect based off insane athleticism, twitchiness, explosiveness, fluidity of movement, just incredible movement skills. Like, he looks like a top tier talent, but the guy has played like 370 snaps. You were saying before we went live, he's got more special team snaps than he has defensive snaps in his college career.
Double. So he's over 700 special team snaps and 370 defensive snaps. And when and if he's drafted, that'll be the lowest number of snaps for an edge rusher by over 100 for a guy drafted in the last 10 years, say, at least.
Yeah. So in terms of sample size for what you want to see, there's almost nothing. Now, the special teams thing is huge for him, because if you are a day 3 player, and maybe he does go earlier than that, maybe NFL teams see the same thing and he's going to go earlier. But if you're a day 3 guy, one of the ways you give yourself a chance is by special teams, is by hanging on, becoming a core special teamer, guaranteeing yourself a roster spot, because you can play that. And then you have some time to develop and to earn yourself defensive snaps and get on, the real action that everybody wants, offense or defensive football. But so he's got a huge leg up in terms of that special teams value already. But man, he's got the traits. When you start looking at the speed, the athleticism, the twitchiness, the dynamism, and he's got pass rush moves as well. He's not just an athlete who has no idea what he's doing. He went to Alabama. This is a blue blood program. They tend to know what they're doing from a technique point of view at Alabama. And he's got a few different pass rush moves. He's got a nice inside counter. He's got speed to the edge. He's got speed to power, not with a bull rush, but I think he's got a really nice kind of long arm that he's able to use, basically one arm right down the pipe of an offensive tackle, get their head backwards, get the momentum shifted backwards. Those 3 things give you can win in all 3 ways, right? You can get outside the tackle, you can get inside the tackle, and you can go right through them. That's a huge starting point. Like, that's a situational pass rusher from day 1 in the NFL who can be effective.
And so we reiterate, we're not saying any of these players, take him on day 1. But I mean, if he's around on day 3, round 4 or later, a guy that is very inexperienced, was a rotational player last year, had about a little over 100 snaps going into last year. Again, finished with 370 total snaps in his Alabama career, but a 90+ PFF grade as a pass rusher last year in his limited time. So I think that is a perfect sleeper, especially even in a deep edge rush class, taking a flyer on a guy that can play special teams. And I think teams overrate special teams on day 3. I think they overrate needing to find somebody, but I get it, right? You have roster restrictions, and if you're going to take a 4th or 5th edge rusher, a 4th or 5th wide receiver, you can't have them not being a contributor on special teams. So I think that only helps Q Robinson for Alabama.
It's really it's the athleticism stuff, though. Like, we were, doing the edge rusher rankings. So you're going through edge rusher after edge rusher after edge rusher, and you're, cycling through all these guys. And once you get a certain distance into the list, you see the limitations relative to, if you went from that group, the guys that are like the 20th ranked edge rusher, if you went from those guys back up to the top of the draft, right? If you went from that and threw on Abdul Carter tape again, or threw on James Pierce Jr. tape again, you would immediately see the difference in terms of athleticism, movement, all those kinds of things. But Q was the first guy in that middle tier, or in that lower tier, where you put on the tape and it belongs with the top group. Like, his movement and athleticism and explosiveness belong with the elite players in this draft. But it's a crazy small sample size, and we haven't seen him do that against top tier competition for an extended period of time. So over his entire college career, so he gets ranked a lot lower. But like, that's the first guy in that group where you're like, okay, he has the tools that belong with the elites.
All right, man. Our second sleeper that we want to mention here, last week we did our running back rankings. Go check that out if you have not already. And within minutes, you're over there sending me a message like, oh man, I didn't get to see a couple running back prospects. And one of those guys, we didn't get to discuss him on the show. And one of those guys was Lan Larison, the running back out of UC Davis. And all of a sudden, it was like you were inundated with Lan Larison highlights all over your Twitter/X account, right?
Yeah. And they're insane. Like, even just his highlights are nuts. His highlight reel has more one-handed catches on it than I think any other player in this draft. Player, not running back, like receiver as well.
Yeah.
And they're insane catches. Like, he's got, one of those kind of up over the top one-handed snags. He's got one-handed snags from behind him as he's running a crossing right across the middle of the field. Like, this dude has got legit hands. He's got a PFF receiving grade above 90. He's like powerfully built. He's I think he ran a 4.4 something at his pro day. He's got tools. Like, this is a fun player to watch.
The pass game stuff is really impressive because they'll move him around. You mentioned all the one-handed catches. Obviously, there's going to be a competition question or whatever, but you're looking at as a late round type of option. You're looking at the traits, the number of one-handed catches that he has, pretty incredible. Remember, who was UNH last year? Their running back coming out, all the names blending together. The UNH running back that went late to the Raiders and had he fumbled on his only snap this year. But anyway, he was the guy that was getting hyped up as like late round. He went to the Senior Bowl, pass game type of weapon, even though it hasn't worked out in year one for him. But Lan Larison has that type of ability, right? The ability to move around, catch the ball, and just be a good natural athlete who our friend JT O'Sullivan was like, hey, this dude was the best player on the field all the time. Every single game for UC Davis. If you're taking an FCS prospect, that's the type of player you're looking for.
Yeah, he does. Like he's got some fun tape. Like UC Davis they're not weird team. They're one of those teams where, week one, they're the sacrificial lamb to a proper blue blood program every year, and it's like one of the most just depressing beatdown games I've ever seen was like UC Davis against Stanford or something. And in the first couple of weeks of a college football season. And it was like, these two teams don't belong playing each other. Like it's unfair. It feels bullying for Stanford to just absolutely stomp UC Davis this way. So you go and kind of watch those games, and he played Cal this year, and it's like he was the offense, and they got into the shadow of the goal line, and it's like we're just going to run Lan Larison 4 times and hope he gets in 1 time, right? And Cal know that's what they're doing, so they've got the line stuffed. It's the guy doesn't have much room to work with, but like he's got legit skills. He can run the ball. He's a pretty good athlete. He's powerful. He's got enough moves, and the receiving stuff is sick. So like there's definitely a pathway to playing time for him, I think, reasonably quickly.
Especially with I made this statement coming out years ago when Reggie Bush came out, pre-draft analyst days. I thought just watching Reggie Bush, I was like, this dude could be a receiver. If this guy was a receiver, he's a first-round pick. So I said this 2 different times in my life. Reggie Bush, the receiver, high-end slot receiver, first-round pick. Said the same thing about Christian McCaffrey when he came out. If he was just a receiver, he's in the first-round type of mix. Larison's receiving skills, I'm not saying his first-round pick. I'm just saying his pure receiving skills have that type of vibe to them, right? Put him out wide. You don't see ball skills like that for running backs. You just don't see that. You and I highlighted Josh Jacobs coming out a few years ago. He had that one outstanding, was like a back shoulder, one hand, whatever he had sometimes you just see 1 or 2 catches that show you that a running back has this incredible receiving skill set that you can use to the next level, because they don't have a ton of opportunities at the college level. But you're right, like the Lan Larison highlight reel is out of this world. So now I'm thinking, okay, even just as a slot receiver, is he viable? Is he good enough to, at least take a shot on there? So yeah, intriguing player. And unfortunately, we didn't get to his tape before the running back rankings. I don't think he's making the top 10, but he certainly would have made our sleeper discussion as he is right here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you want him playing slot receiver necessarily, but he's a running back that gives you, those sort of running back options. Like he averaged over 12 yards a reception for his college career, 13 last season, 2.31 yards per route run last season as a running back. That's crazy. Like those are absolutely ridiculous numbers. He spent, a little bit of time split out in the slot, but so he obviously he's a capable running back receiver, but he also gives you the ability to run more routes from the running back position than just, the angle routes, the pivot routes, all the flat swings, all those kinds of things. Like this is a guy that you can move around in the formation and run further down the field than a lot of other running backs. And he's, 215 pounds with a exceptional athletic profile. Like he can run the ball as well. He's not just, an undersized scat back that's going to be used in the receiving game. Like this guy could be a factor on all 3 downs.
All right, man. So Lan Larison, no guy that we did not get to mention on our running back rankings. Next player that we're going to talk about, we did discuss in our wide receiver rankings. It's Tory Horton, the wide receiver out of Colorado State. He didn't make either of our top 10s, but for me, he was fringe top 10. He was, in that 10 to 12, 13 range. I know you liked him quite a bit. And for a lot of these players, he's coming off of injury last year. And that's one of the stories of this draft, I think, are players that were going to go either round 1, even round 2, who got hurt last year. And I don't know if they're just being a little slept on. That's why we're talking sleepers. Slept on in the process, if the injuries are legitimate concerns long-term. But Horton kind of fits the bill here because he was getting some day 2 type of hype, I would say, at some point. And he is a very good receiver just coming off of injury during the 2024 season.
Yeah, he is. I've liked him from watching his tape, a year ago, and then sort of discovering that he was he didn't come out last year and he was going back to college, and then he plays a few games and gets hurt. But in those few games, he was averaging 3.45 yards per route run. That was a career high. Before that, the 2 previous years, I mean, his trajectory was pretty crazy. He went from like 650 yards to 1,100 with even more touchdowns and a higher PFF grade. Like, his kind of career arc was headed exactly in the right direction. And then he gets hurt and kind of derails that. But pretty long, pretty sort of tall, fast, long, a little bit like a sort of slightly heavier version of Devontae Smith, like that kind of body shape, tall, rangy. He's got some good route running chops. Now, Colorado State is one of those offenses where, you're not running the widest variety of routes. I would like to have seen him with a little more on his plate to figure out exactly what he can do. But I think he's a capable route runner, a good receiver. He's got good hands. He's pretty dynamic with the ball in his hands as well, and fast. He's got like a really good ability to cut at full speed and make guys miss. The question is, with all those guys in those types of offenses, how much more can you put on his plate and ask him to do? But as if he's a day 3 option, I would love to bring in a Tory Horton.
Came in at about 6'2.5", 185 body type that you mentioned there. I was impressed with how well he moved. I thought his footwork in and out of breaks was really, really impressive. Kind of stopped on a dime, got in and out of vertical routes extremely well. You mentioned his ability after the catch, or his speed after the catch. He gets after it after the catch too. I mean, he's breaking tackles and breaking tackles at a pretty high rate after the catch, certainly relative to most receivers. I was impressed with a lot of what Tory Horton brings to the table.
Yeah, and he ran I think his 40 time was like 4.4, something like that. But he was still, I think, I think he was still working back from that injury. And if you look at tracking data from the 2 years before he got hurt, the numbers were like elite. I mean, he had legitimate high-end athleticism there. Really, really good ability to just make guys miss with like those full speed cuts with the ball in his hands. So many of his targets, though, were these like shallow drags across the middle. It's just, I watched one game where I think there was like 5 or 6 of them consecutively. I'm like, this can't be a sequence. Like, I must have accidentally threw a filter on that was showing me only shallow drags or something. This can't possibly be actually how he was deployed in this game.
A 1.53 10-yard split too. So he's pretty good acceleration, speed. Yeah, some of those, when I was watching a bunch of the tight ends, Tyler Warren in particular, like half of his catches were like, a bunch of tight ends, it was like block, release on a drag route over and over and over again. There were certain offenses where when you watch all the targets, it's the same 2 or 3 routes over and over again. It's just how college is. But yeah, I liked Horton quite a bit. He was just on a different trajectory. Now, he's a 5th-year guy. It was his 5th year of school in 2024. Was at Nevada to start. 90, almost a 90 PFF grade, 88 grade or whatever in 2023. So he was progressively getting better. On his way to a good 2024 season. Had a nice game against Texas in week 1. And then gets hurt after just 227 snaps last year.
Yeah, he is. I mean, despite being that 5th year, he is only 22 years old still, which means, if you're the type of person that cares about those breakout ages and all that kind of thing, like he was cooking with 1,000+ yards, 8 touchdowns at 20 years of age, right. 19 actually for a big chunk of that because he was born in November. So like he has the statistical profile that works, even if you're one of the people that cares about age, breakout age, dominator rating, all that kind of thing. It's just that, like, it's a weird, I don't understand why he went back to college, and actually it ended up working out really badly for him because he got hurt and suddenly his stock seems to have plummeted. But like, if he'd come out last year off the back of like 2 really impressive seasons with the athleticism that he's got and the age being a year younger, 21 years old with that profile, like, I really liked him a year ago and was sort of wondering, why is nobody talking about this guy? Turns out the reason was because he went back to college. But like, I feel like his stock would have been a lot higher a year ago than it is now.
Yeah. So you're talking about that whole chunk of receivers who could go round 3, round 4. Maybe he's in that kind of mix. And again, I think one of the stories of the draft is the players that are dropping just because the red flag is they only played half the season or got hurt last year. And I think that makes Horton a fair sleeper in this draft for everything we laid out. Next guy I want to mention, Jacob Parrish, the cornerback out of Kansas State. Kind of every year I think you get these guys, feisty slot types, tackle well. That's what really stood out to me about Jacob Parrish from K-State.
Yeah, he's definitely a fun player. Like all kinds. He's one of those sort of dynamo type defensive backs that just seems to fly around, blow things up, explosive. Like he's a fun player.
So every time K-State was in cover 2, you look at, cornerbacks have to tackle. They have to tackle so much. In college football, the number of times that you have to handle screens, we'll talk about that with the safety in a minute here after our ad read. But the skill set of blowing up screens, tackling in the flat, tackling all of the short routes that are needed in college football. Parrish has that, was kind of feisty at the Senior Bowl, similar inside outside ability. Andrew Phillips from Kentucky last year was one of Dane Brugler's favorites and had a really nice rookie season for the Giants. He's one of those guys that comes to mind. Now, when you're watching corners, I feel like a few of these guys pop up every year, right? Every time we're watching, look at all the edge rushers, look at all the receivers. There's a ton of corners to watch too. So there's always some of those guys where it's like, this guy's a little bit undersized, gets after it, feisty, all these same thoughts show up every year. But it's not just like, he's not the only guy. There's other players who are similar, but that's what came to mind with Parrish. So the other guy in their secondary too, Marcus Sigley, also ran. So Parrish ran a 4.35. Sigley ran in the 4.3s as well.
Yeah.
And both of them, every single time I watched K-State or watched opponents of K-State evaluating receivers or QBs or whoever it was, both of those guys popped quite a bit.
Yeah, it's like when you're talking about kind of undersized players, quote unquote, the follow-up question is always, well, what are they bringing to the table to offset that lack of size, right? And Parrish, like, he's short, so 5'9", 5'10", but he's not small. Like, he's 190 pounds at that size. That's pretty stocky. Like, there's a lot of these guys now that are showing up 180, 170 pounds, particularly when you're short. He's definitely short and he's got relatively short arms, but 190 pounds is built for that size. And you're then bringing like elite speed to the table. I mean, he was a state champion sprinter and he's built like a sprinter, right? Those guys are short and stocky generally. There's, some of these kind of long, thin guys, but like they're short, stocky, and heavy and explosive. They're like balls of muscle. And he's built like that. He's got legit track speed, explosiveness, and power to his game as well. Like I think he's built like a perfect NFL slot.
All right, we're going to get to a few more sleepers and everyone else's sleepers in the chat. We'll try to respond to some of the players in the chat and on Twitter. But first, going to tell you about our friends over at ZBiotics. Going to tell you there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after drinks with friends, and it's pre-alcohol. ZBiotics, a pre-alcohol probiotic drink, is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. We tested this out. A couple of our friends over at Indianapolis at the Combine, all part of draft season here. Some late nights in Indy, and everybody was feeling great. with their pre-alcohol. So spring is here, which means more opportunities to celebrate warmer weather before drinks on the patio, that tropical vacation, your best friend's wedding. Don't forget your ZBiotics pre-alcohol. Drink one before drinking and then wake up feeling great the next day. So go to ZBiotics.com/checkthemic and you can learn more. Get 15% off your first order when you use Check the Mic at checkout. ZBiotics is backed by 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So remember to head to ZBiotics.com/checkthemic. Use code CheckTheMic at checkout for 15% off. Still waiting on that warmer weather. We're on.
We had
winter.
it for a week and then it went away.
Yeah, this is like winter number 5 here.
So the problem, I'm not well suited for Ohio weather conditions because I like order in my weather. I like it. I like a transition of the seasons and for it to just the transition to be seamless. Right? It was winter. Then it becomes spring, and then spring becomes summer, and then it becomes autumn or fall or whatever you want to call it, and back to winter again, right? The problem with Ohio is it was winter, and then it becomes summer, and then it goes back to winter and spring, and it's complete madness, right? So I have made the transition between long pants and long sleeves to short pants and short sleeves, and I refuse to go back. I don't care if it's 25 degrees again. I'm not doing it. I'm not going back to the hoodies and the long pants. It's time.
Yeah, well, you had a 2-month stretch, which starts in February, by the way. February, you get some really good fake springs. You got some 60-degree weather days. The worst is when it's like 33 in the morning, and then 52 by noon, and then like 84 at 4 p.m. It's like, what are we doing here? It's 3 different seasons rolled into one.
And I refuse to ever check in the morning. So I end up like the first I discover that it's not as nice weather as I am assuming it will be is when I leave to take Scout to the bus stop and it's like 25 degrees and I'm in a t-shirt and I'm like, it's not good. Anyway.
I mean, you could always go back to gloomy Ireland if you want, but
at least it's order. It's sensible, it's logical, it's rainy and gray, but you know what it's going to be.
All right. The next sleeper on the list, some people might think I'm crazy for putting a guy. Let's see, how high is he on the.
Yes. Well, this is the first one where I think we can start to really question the term sleeper.
Well, he's number 92 on the consensus board. So it's a similar discussion to Tory Horton because this guy got hurt and would have been, I don't know if he's a fringe first rounder, but certainly in the round 2 discussion. Kevin Winston Jr., the safety out of Penn State, only played barely 2 games last year, but extremely productive player and love watching him play football. So I think he's a sleeper in this discussion because of the uncertainty, much like a Tory Horton was on a trajectory to be drafted much higher. And now some team could maybe get a steal just because he's coming off of injury.
Yeah, he's one though I don't think it's necessarily a weak safety class, but I think safety is always one of those positions where once you get past the top couple of guys, it gets pretty chaotic pretty quickly. Like it's beauty in the eye of the beholder. And that's when the weird names start to pop up in the second round and stuff. So in those terms, it wouldn't shock me if he was off the board quite early. And this ends up kind of looking ridiculous in terms of, wow, you said this guy was a sleeper and he got taken at the top of the second round or whatever. Because I can see like the skill set is there, and I think some teams will definitely be willing to jump on that immediately. I think there's some, the low sample size, relative lack of experience. There's some problems to his game. Like he bites the crap out of play action, which is not necessarily a great thing for a safety that needs to be, protecting safely. So that I think is something that definitely needs to be worked on from his game. But yeah, like the tools are there. I like some of his tape.
When you're watching safeties, I'm always torn because I have similar notes on him as I have Nicky Minwari, the guy that tore up the combine from South Carolina. When they work downhill, it is outstanding. It is straight line. It's fast. We didn't get a time on Winston, but he looks fast and he plays fast. And all of his highlight reel plays are him blowing up screens. That's what I was referencing when we were talking about Parrish. The short passing game goes to die when Kevin Winston is playing, whether it's quarters, whether it's in a robber role, whether it's just your cover 3 strong safety, the Cam Chancellor role. He breaks downhill incredibly. You're right. He bites a couple times. That same skill is worked against him on play action. but he's got a number of plays in there too where the recovery speed shows up, right? So he's got
Yeah.
this recovery speed, plays through the hands, broke up a ton of passes at Penn State relative to how many times he was actually targeted in coverage. And he's an extremely sure tackler. So remember when Brian Branch came out and we talked about the guy just doesn't miss tackles. He's an outstanding tackler. Now that's almost impossible to carry over 1-for-1 in the NFL. You're going to miss more tackles in the NFL. But Winston missed 2 tackles in his Penn State career, 98th percentile missed tackle percentage. So you've got that, right? That's the stuff as a safety, the position where you need to be safe, that gets underrated, right? So this is why I think he is underrated, right? He just makes the plays in front of him extremely well, finishes plays, tackles, gets dirty in the run game. Don't love him in man coverage against tight ends. Some of his worst plays come one-on-one against tight ends. I'm always looking for my tight end eraser type guy that can get up and no, it's not him yet. He's got skills to do that. He's got the body and athleticism. I think he's just not polished in man coverage, but I like a lot of what Kevin Winston Jr. brings to the table.
The tackling point is a good one. Like, he's a really good tackler. And I so much of NFL defense frustrates me because the tackling standard is atrocious, both in terms of execution and technique. Like, the attempted technique is awful. So for a guy, and there's a few of them in this draft, he's one of them. I've said this before about Jalen Walker. I'm finding myself gravitating towards guys that just have natural, really good tackling technique and execution, because there aren't that many of them anymore. I honestly think it's reaching the stage where it can become an edge or a difference maker for some of these guys that can just tackle well.
All right, next guy we're talking about here, defensive lineman, CJ West out of Indiana. I saw his name pop up in the chat earlier. I've seen his name pop up in a few different underrated places. Guy plays at about 315 pounds, was playing some pure zero tech nose tackle for Indiana, extremely disruptive in the run game. Has some high-end pass rushes in there too, where he's pushing the pocket even from, zero tech is that head up right over the center. You're almost always facing some kind of double team. It's tough to have pass rush production from that spot, but West was also really productive as a pass rusher, as a zero tech, as a pure nose tackle. So in that second-ish wave of defensive tackles, I think West is one of those sleepers and provides some value.
Yeah. Do you have a comp for him? Because he's an interesting body type for a guy that's sort of that productive and that like, he's not the kind of player you think he is when you start describing a lot of that.
Yeah, I don't have a pure comp. All I know is, so he played a lot of a pure zero tech nose tackle, as I said. And at, what is he, 300, 315, like I said, right? He's probably not doing that at the next level, but he's quick, right? So almost every defensive tackle in my notes, I'm like, double teams, tough anchor, it's tough to anchor against doubles. It's pretty much everybody struggles with that. So it's all about relative. What are you relative to that? He's pretty good at that. He's just got good block awareness. So let me just, off the top of my head here, Kenny Clark comes to mind.
That's where I was going.
Agree? Wow. Okay. So Kenny Clark comes to mind, where the same note was, I had the same note when Kenny Clark came out, which was block awareness, right? So it's pure, like, you're facing a double team head up, you're probably going to get moved off the ball, but knowing where the back block's coming from, knowing when you're going to get cut, just a great feel for shedding blocks. I think CJ West has that. That reminds me of Kenny Clark, and Kenny Clark was somewhat, I think, miscast as a nose tackle, and if you just let him be a pure three tech, get up the field type, he might be better, and I think West is similar in that regard. I can't believe you I got to where your brain was going here.
I was going to make the Kenny Clark comp. And look, Kenny Clark's career has fallen off a little bit. I'm not entirely sure why, but there was a period where he was like the new prototype for the modern NFL nose tackle, right? You go back long enough. Again, we talked about this a little bit with our edge rankings yesterday. Old school 3-4 defenses where all of the down linemen, the three linemen, were two gapping players. The nose tackle in those defenses was like a 350-pound Leviathan who just occupied space, 8 blocks, offered basically nothing as a pass rusher, and his job was to just chew up as many blockers as humanly possible. And then, defenses started to adapt, started to kind of merge, like 4-3 and 3-4 kind of homologized or homogenated rather, and came together and started becoming basically interchangeable, and sub-package defenses, made everything look the same. And you kind of lost the nose tackle change into something different. And now these guys needed to play more one gap. They needed to bring more as a pass rusher. And there was a few years where I think Kenny Clark was becoming like the modern nose tackle prototype in that Green Bay defense. And then he hasn't been as good over the last few years. But I think that's kind of what Wes can look like that player who is good at every aspect of being like a modern nose tackle. If you needed him to hold up as a true 2-gapping 3-4 nose tackle, we might have some struggle. But I think in today's version of the NFL, he's like a perfect modern nose tackle.
So yeah, it's 6'1", 317, and he ran a sub 540, ran 4.95, 1.7, 1.73, 10-yard split. So pretty good get off. And he's got some freaky rushes where he's very quick off the ball. He's very good with his hands, and he'll just have the center back in the QB's lap pretty quickly. He had the pretty high pressure rate for a zero tech nose tackle. Again, I don't know if I want him playing there, if that's just where Indiana had to play him there, because I still think he could be more of like your classic penetrator from a 3-tech position. So I think he's got some versatility up front. I like CJ West quite a bit, and I do think it's still a deep defensive tackle class. So he's in the consensus board. I think like fringe DT 10 or so. Like he's in that range. But I don't know where he's going to get drafted, but I think you're getting a pretty good value from CJ West in that second to third wave of defensive tackles. Listeners to the show will not be surprised by the next player. It's Willie Lampkin.
Yeah.
Offensive weapon, UNC. Got to highlight Willie as a sleeper.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's the guy where if you watch any tape that involves that offense, he jumps out. Like if you're watching opponents, if you're watching anybody on UNC, Willie Lampkin is consistently standing out as a positive influence on the play. And he's doing this he's my height, right? He came in at 5'10" and something. I don't think he even made it to 5'11", and then like 280 pounds. So he's 5'10". Wildly undersized, but he's got a freaky body type because his wingspan is that of like a 6'6" person. So did you hear the other day Jason Kelsey talking about the players that gave him the most problems, right? And he was like, obviously Aaron Donald is a freak show, but he tends to rush over the guard. So thankfully didn't have to deal with him that much. And then he was like, Dexter Lawrence is, insane, right? The size that he brings and how good he is. And the third player he singled out was Poona Ford, because he said, okay, I am an undersized center, right? So I'm relatively short, relatively small. So I can get under guys, but Poona Ford is shorter than me and has longer arms than me. Those two things put together negate every advantage I bring to the table. So I found him as a specific nightmare from my skill set. Well, Lampkin is bringing that effectively from the other side of the ball. He's short, but he's got a ridiculously long arm. So he is a natural leverage monster. And you saw it during the Senior Bowl, right? He's this tiny guy relative to all the guys he stood around, but he gets under and he's going up against these monsters on the defensive line, Deion Walker and Farmer, whoever else was there, the monster nose tackles that were in front of him, and they're not moving him. They outweigh him by 60, 70 pounds, and they're not winning because he's got the leverage advantage over them. I was gutted, to be honest, that his kind of measurements and our workout numbers were as bad as they were. I was hoping, we could pair some Jason Kelsey short shuttle numbers or whatever and really go to bat for the guy. But man, between the tape and just seeing him operate in person, I'm definitely going to bat for Willie Lampkin. If I need a center and I don't need him to be, specifically if I run any kind of zone volume, I want this guy on the team.
I was surprised by those numbers too, by the way. He looks quick on film. I mean, he doesn't look like Kelsey. When I used to describe Kelsey, I mean, he looks like a linebacker running in space. Jason Kelsey, looked like a completely different athlete. And there's a few, Tyler Linderbaum, completely different athlete when they, on the football field. But I thought Lampkin looks athletic. And I've mentioned before, when you're watching Omarion Hampton, just run after run after run, and it's like, man, the right guard is making his block almost every single time. Whether he's a part of a double team, creating movement, whether it's one-on-one, the pad level thing is real. Now, the only comp in the NFL is Aaron Brewer. The only comp that you can even come up with that is not even sniffing 300 pounds that is playing in the NFL is Aaron Brewer, who's 6'1", 274, and has played center for the Titans, the Dolphins, and played it at a reasonable level, certainly relative to expectations. But even that's 2 inches. He's got 2 inches on Willie. So the height is still different, right? He's in his own world. Lance Zierlein was one of the first people to really highlight Willie Lampkin as like, I don't know what to do with him as a prospect, but get him playing fullback and just get him as your 6th offensive lineman and do some stuff with him. So I think at the very least do that, right? I would love to see Willie Lampkin come in as a center, and he could be the undersized center like Aaron Brewer and move him around, put him at fullback, because he makes blocks well on the move, and he makes blocks well at the point of attack where he has that leverage advantage. And I would give him those opportunities. And then when he gets drafted, hopefully he gets drafted. He might go undrafted. If he gets drafted, we get the picture of you and him, and we'll put it on the show on draft night.
Yeah, I would love to see him. As I said, I didn't expect him to test like Kelsey, but like his short shuttle time was like half a second slower than Kelsey's. I was expecting him to be closer to Kelsey than some of the centers that weigh like 310 pounds, for example. So I was bummed that his sort of workout numbers were not even that they weren't amazing, but that they weren't particularly good. If he'd had good workout numbers, I would have been really happy, like completely going to bat for him and saying, stop this like fullback nonsense, bring him in. He's shown you he can play center at a high level. Let him cook, right? There's a play in the Senior Bowl practices, the kind of full team sessions, where the defensive line runs a stunt and David Walker is coming across the middle into the gap, and Lampkin, he's turned to the right and then identifies it coming from the left, comes across, and they meet, and it's like low leverage versus low leverage, and Lampkin wins. Like he's outsized effectively, and David Walker is a leverage monster. He's the Brandon Graham comp that everyone keeps giving you from Central Arkansas, and Lampkin stoned him. Like I think that guy can start in the NFL as a center.
The one other thing I just wanted to highlight from the Senior Bowl, and just the massive disadvantage that offensive linemen are at. We've talked a lot about the Josh Connerly play where Mike Green leveled him, and a few other guys got pancaked, bull rushed, whatever. And it is so difficult for the left tackle to move to the right side. Now they're in training. They've spent a few weeks training for the draft and probably training both sides, but they're just not naturally used to going from left tackle to right tackle. One of the things I saw with Lampkin, he's training to play center. It's a new position for him. So he had one rep where he snaps the ball. He's a little late to shoot his hands, and he gets beaten by Deion Walker, the 6'7", 340-pounder. But the next rep, he fixed it. And he locked up Walker, a guy that is outweighing him by about 50 or 60 pounds or whatever it is, right? So that's what's intriguing to me, right? So when you have guys who are natural played guard, and then they're learning how to snap and block at the same time, when the defensive linemen are used to moving around, right? They're used to rushing from both sides. They're used to rushing from both sides of the center, or both sides as a 3 technique. The offensive linemen are not. So from a Senior Bowl perspective, Willie Lampkin held his own. And then when you adjust for, the new position, maybe I'm just making excuses for a guy that I like, but it is real because you could see it in action. He snaps the ball late to shoot his hands. He loses, makes the adjustment the next play, and he's locking up dudes, winning the leverage battle again. So I'm going to bat for Willie Lampkin. And I do believe at worst, goal line fullback. Maybe he's a backup on the interior of the offensive line, but a goal line fullback, or a guy that you can, create packages around or whatever, because he does block well in space, even if the times weren't great. So
he's a classic example of like, dude, I just want that guy on my team. Like, generally speaking, I think a lot of teams get to day 3 and they're just chasing athletes. He's the other type of guy I think you can chase. Like, okay, we'll chase a freaky athlete that, you know, hasn't done it, or a low sample size, or, you know, there's reasons or whatever that he's not a top prospect. But also, like, let's chase on day 3. I think you can chase some outliers like Willie Lampkin and say, okay, there's a lot of things that don't tick the boxes, but the tape's awesome. Like, he's actually got the most important part of the prospect profile ticked, which is the dude's tape is legit.
I like your thread that you have on Twitter, the guys you just want on your team. Have you properly added Willie to the list yet?
You know, I was literally just thinking that just a second ago when I was saying that. I kind of assumed in my brain that I already had, but I actually don't think I have. I'm gonna have to check
get him
that
out there
at some point.
You gotta get him on there.
Yeah.
So that's Willie Lampkin. I'm gonna put the IPP guy at the end here. I just want to highlight one other player first, unless you have something else on Willie. What? We're gonna finish with the.
I see what you're doing. It's fine.
Is that discrimination?
Yeah.
I want to stick with the offensive lineman, Jalen Travis, offensive tackle out of Iowa State. Now, this is for different. I'm calling him more of just, this is the developmental tackle of the draft. This is, I think him and Logan Brown from Kansas are the developmental tackle of the draft. And you said at the beginning of the show, where the hit rate's low, the hit rate on the quote developmental tackle might be even lower.
Awful.
Yeah. I mean, there's a guy that I like every year, Blake Freeland and Matt Paird, and all of the reasons make sense, right? Matt Paird a couple of years ago had only played football for a couple of years, but he was long and he moved well and he was productive and he just needed to tidy up some technique issues. And Blake Freeland, I still think actually has a future. He needed like 3 years in the weight room. So I saw him as like year 4, maybe Blake Freeland, the Colts backup tackle, could eventually be good, but the poor guy was thrown in there as a rookie and was just not ready and looked horrible.
Right.
So Jalen Travis is intriguing because he's 6'7", 320 something. Already somewhat productive. Played at Princeton for 3 years, 1 year at Iowa State. Really productive pass blocker. I think he still has some things to clean up with his footwork, kick step, and everything. But I've seen progress there, and you even saw some of that progress at the Senior Bowl where he had some bad reps. And it was the same thing. I'm over there like making excuses for him because a lot of his bad reps were at right tackle. And it's like the guy played left tackle. He's just used to playing left tackle. It's really difficult to do this on the fly against some of the best prospects in the world. But if you want a 1-rep scout, a tackle, which I highly recommend you don't do, he's got locked up my edge 2, your edge 3, Mike Green, with a great rep, so it's not like the Tyler Guyton thing that we said last year, right? There's a few reps where it looks unbelievable. Travis has a few of those. And for a guy that's not going in the first round like Tyler Guyton, that's intriguing, right? So developmental tackle option. He's kind of bad in the run game, run blocking wise, like target lock at the second level. He's all over the place. He's just angles, and he needs coaching, especially run game wise, but he's got a lot of pass rush potential. So I just wanted to highlight him as the developmental tackle that I wanted to put a spotlight on in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, inconsistent is, I think, a pretty solid word for him. Like, there are reps where he loses the losing reps, and to be fair, there aren't many of them. Like, now strength of competition is definitely a factor there, but there aren't many losing reps. But a lot of the losing reps look like he can't move, right? They're like inside counter moves, and the guy's feet are just like buried in the turf, and you're like, that's never going to work. Like that can't fly. But then you see other reps, like, as you said, Mike Green, there are reps where he looks like he's able to move beautifully, like perfectly fluid. He's not, a leaden-footed athlete, one of these guys that's just big and strong and can't really move. The good reps look fantastic. So, yeah, I'm intrigued. Like, he's obviously big and strong. You can see that in the tape. And the good reps are very good, and the overall body of work has been excellent. So, again, strike rate on developmental tackles, not good, but I like that I like him as the guy to give a shot at that too this year.
I got his measurables off a little bit. He is 6'7" 3/4, 340, but moves well. I mean, he ran a 5.14, which isn't for his
that
size.
Size isn't bad.
Yeah, he's got the long arms, almost 35-inch arms. vertical and broad, 35-inch vertical, pretty good broad jump. Like, so he's athletic. And I think he started to improve his kick step a little bit, his technique and pass protection. So I've seen some progress there. So again, with the caveat that 5% of these guys might actually work out as developmental tackles, I would say Travis might be the best option. And you're looking at round 4 to 6 maybe for him at the moment, but you never know when tackles get bumped up if he might go even higher. The run game stuff is a little concerning. I think there's just general issues there, but if you're talking about you're teaching a guy to move, it's just crazy because he doesn't go to the right spot. He just doesn't take the right departure angle or anything like that so often. Can you coach that? Maybe, because he's a good athlete and might be able to figure it out. So just want to highlight Travis as the guy. How about your IPP guy, Sam? Tell us all about your sleeper here.
Yeah. Mapalo Mwansa, who has, so number one, we talked to Dominic Fevrier McPherson, who's the lead of the IPP. That show, I think we're going to put out as its own little video next week sometime. But he was kind of giving us a whole breakdown of the IPP and the class this year and all those kinds of things. So I think generally, Maz Mwansa is the guy that is most likely to be drafted from this year's IPP group, and the guy that is likely to be drafted the highest from this year's IPP group. Now, remember, a couple of these guys have already signed already, and it's basically how old they are, right? If you're outside of high school by 3 years, you're a free agent immediately. And guys like Jordan Pataya signed with the Chargers already. If you are younger than that, you are draft eligible and you can be drafted. And that's where this guy falls. He has a wild story. He essentially was just like kid, grew up, played a bunch of different sports, got to college, and kind of did what I did, which is like you just stopped playing things. You're not in any kind of organized whatever. You weren't on a fast track to any professional sport. And so he was just like going to the gym and rocked up to some kind of like, so he went to Loughborough, which is quite a sports centric college in the UK. And he went to some kind of sports day there where they just sort of see who's around athlete wise and get them into stuff. And apparently, according to him, ran a 10-400 meters during that sports day, right? That's like, I mean, there are national records that are higher than that, right? So the dude's just like cruising around, like doing gym work in his spare time, rocks up, runs a 10-400 meter time. And they're like, what sport do you play? And he's like, nothing. They're like, well, we need to change that because that's insane. So he takes up American football. And so we're talking about this guy. The IPP Pro Day was a while ago. So he's 6'2", 230 pounds. He's like a linebacker / edge, hybrid, something in that world. He ran a 4.6 at that size, had a 38.5-inch vertical, ran a 7.143 cone, a 4.4 short shuttle. He's got 33.5-inch arms, got a decent wingspan, a 1.66 second get off. Like, this is a legit athlete who's like all of those numbers we're talking about. This is based off like whatever it is, 8 weeks, 10 weeks of IPP training, right? So this is not somebody that's been working on those drills for months and months and months. This is the guy that's been learning football for the last like 8 to 10 weeks, rocked up and is coming out as like a top tier athlete, just a freak show human being from an athlete standpoint. I mean, he's ranking, where is he ranking Dane Brugler's thing? It's like reasonably high.
What's his size again?
6'2", 230.
And remind people how the IPP works, the International Pathway Program, what restrictions they have for teams, or how that all works, or if they draft somebody, how it changes.
Well, now everybody has so he's Dane Brugler's 75th ranked edge rusher, right? Which doesn't sound great, but like when you haven't played the game, essentially, it's pretty good. Yeah. So every team now has essentially a bonus practice squad spot for international players. So you can draft these guys and effectively stash them for a year plus as a bonus player on the practice squad. Or obviously you can carry them on the active roster, etc. But, if you're grabbing a guy and, you can, as long as he clears waivers and isn't going to get signed to anybody else's active roster, you can put that guy in your practice squad and you have effectively an extra bonus roster spot. So anyway, like last year we had, Louis Rees-Zammit as the kind of star of the IPP, and signed with the Chiefs, and he's now signed with the Jags as a receiver. This year, Dominic thinks, he's been saying they're going to get 2 guys drafted. Maybe they'll get more, maybe they'll get, but this is the guy I think that is the most likely and the most likely to get drafted the highest of these IPP guys. Just this absolute freak of an athlete who they're trying to turn into a football player.
I love it. Take a shot on an edge rusher. Mwansa. I need you're the IPP expert, world's foremost leader on the IPP, Sam. Consulting for NFL teams on the IPP.
At least texting with them.
At least texting with them. So those are, was that 10? Was that 9? Anyway, 9. We had 9 sleepers here today. Anyone else that you thought of? I want to go through some of the chat and what they came up with.
There's a couple of quarterbacks that I thought were kind of funny, interesting stories. Hunter Deckers, I saw, was rated really quite highly on in Dane Brugler's The Beast, and I'd never heard of him before. So I was curious what his deal was. He's the guy that was Brock Purdy's like heir apparent at Iowa State, he's a 4-star recruit, apparently the highest recruit of a quarterback that Iowa State has ever had. Unfortunately, he was then investigated for sports betting and ended up pleading guilty to a reduced charge of underage gambling. So he sat out the 2023 season. They wouldn't reinstate him when he applied for reinstatement. They're like, dude, no. So he was basically ineligible, had to go to community college, where he posted 3,800 yards, 32 touchdowns, made the community college national title game, and lost by a single score. But he went to the Hula Bowl this year, looked pretty good there, has the tools. Like he's got, like I was watching his Hula Bowl tape. Like he's got NFL tools. The left-handed quarterback.
Lefty, yeah.
Seems to make some more mistakes than you would like. I think that, obviously we're dealing with a crazy small sample size, right? Like early in his career at Iowa State and now community college stuff and then the Hula Bowl. So maybe we can work out those kinks. But again, once you get deep into the sleepers at quarterback, you're like, none of these guys really have a shot of doing anything. But like he's got NFL tools and a reason that he wasn't playing in the last year or two. So, it depends how you view that. If you think he's put himself on the straight and narrow and, that's all in the past, then he's an interesting name. The fact that he's on an all-star bowl roster, albeit the Hula Bowl as opposed to, the Senior Bowl, at least suggests that there's interest from the NFL.
College kids gambling, can't have that.
NFL kids have been gambling and they're back playing. So,
All right, let's handle some of the chat here. I'll answer. Walt just asked to rank the nose tackles: Alfred Collins, Deion Walker, and CJ West. I honestly don't even know if I'd call CJ West a nose tackle at the next level.
I think he is, but he's a specific type of nose tackle.
Yeah, because I'd probably say Collins, then Walker. I'm just back and forth. I tweeted today, like the stock up, stock down emoji. That's like my mental state when watching Deion Walker play.
Hang on. You want anyone that's been listening to us for any extended period of time, you may be familiar with the boo-boo breakdown that we did with our injury expert, Vic Troa. He texted me actually after our last discussion about Deion Walker. Do you want to hear his analysis?
Yes, I would. Absolutely.
Heard you guys chatting a little bit about Deion Walker and his back injury. Thought I'd give some insight. He has a spondylolisthesis
We all
/ pars fracture.
Yeah.
Which most commonly happens with offense or defensive line that excessively extend their lower back on contact. This can be a major red flag for teams if they think this is a mechanical issue with Deion, meaning this isn't a one-off injury from lifting or something. Rather, it's how he engages blockers and locks out his lower back. We already know he plays with high pad level, and if he relies on his low back to brace when engaging blocks, this will result in a higher recurrence rate. There's about a 20% chance of this injury recurring as is, but if it's a mechanical issue with how he maneuvers his body, that likelihood skyrockets.
Yeah, that sounds bad. So
at
6'7",
I don't like him as a prospect anyway. I would certainly take CJ West over him, even though I think they're very different players, but that's independent of the injury thing, which does sound scary.
Yeah, he's 6'7", 331 as an interior player where pad level's already an issue. And again, it's a chicken or the egg thing, right? Is it the back problem causing the pad level? Is it the inverse? It doesn't matter. I mean, he has for 331 pounds, some bad reps at the point of attack. And similar to kind of, I would say, Kenneth Grant, where you say, what do his best plays look like? Their quickness. It's like impressive plays from an athletic standpoint for a guy that size. It's not the hold the point type of stuff that you definitely need to be pretty good at the next level. But 6'7", 331, over 34-inch arms, massive hands. He's just a monster player. If it is a long-term issue for Deon Walker in his back, that is risky, because we're talking about a guy who off the bus looks like a first rounder and on enough plays looks like a first rounder. But if that's going to be something somewhat chronic, that's a big issue. Other names, do you have something?
Yeah, let me give you. Can I give the other quarterback though I was thinking of? Donovan Smith from Houston has a weird story as well. 6'4", 220 pounds, who runs a 4.6, can vertical jump 37 inches. So, and has a cannon for an arm, like insane athlete. Now, he was listed at 6'5" and 235 and was getting Cam Newton comps because of that size. So we're already in the make-believe world of college like listings turning out not to be exactly what they were billed as. But a year ago, this guy was getting like day one, hype. And then his career completely fell apart. He got benched this year, was an absolute disaster, and is now like undrafted free agent, right? So, but in terms of like day 3 / free agents, like what are you looking at here? I mean, this is a guy who those are NFL tools. 6'4", 220, legit athlete with a cannon.
Joe
right?
Milton. Milton.
Like those alone, those are things to covet. And his career up until last year had actually been, pretty good and was moving in the right direction. Like there's a reason he was getting day one buzz beyond just, beyond just the athletic tools. And then a complete and total disintegration of like his entire future, effectively. Bizarre. I can't think of too many quarterbacks where that's happened.
I want to go through the chat and then the Twitter question that we had. There's a whole bunch of names here. The chat mentioned, apparently, shout out to our guy Will here. Producer Will helped accumulate the number of players that the chat mentioned. Noel Williams apparently had the most votes, the cornerback out of Cal. So the two corners I wanted to highlight quickly: Noel Williams out of Cal, Zoff Frazier out of UTSA. Williams from Cal, he had 8 interceptions last year. He was the recipient of the famous Cam Ward throwback across your body pick 6 against Cal that was going to bury Miami's national title hopes before he made the comeback. Cam Ward. Noel Williams had that pick 6. Pretty good ball skills. I know I've seen a lot of people that really like him as a mid-round sleeper. And then Zoff Frazier, the next guy out of UTSA, long, sub 4.4, freaky athlete type with good ball skills as well.
You want to know something interesting about Noel Williams?
Yes, I do.
So I haven't gotten too deep into the cornerback class yet in terms of tape watching, but I have a whiteboard in my office. And when we do random tape watching, college games, draft prep, and it's like somebody else jumps off the tape, that thing when you're watching a specific player and then someone else on that guy's tape jumps out. I like find out who that guy is. And if they're not in this draft class, I just write the name down. Right. So I did this with KJ Hamler years ago, like one of the first plays he ever had as a freshman. It's like, oh, look at that guy. Just wrote his name down, just left it on the whiteboard for years. The name rang a bell, and it shouldn't, because I don't know who that. I haven't watched his tape yet. And I look over to the left, and I remember writing down the name of a Cal cornerback like 2 years or a year ago. And it's Noel Williams. So Noel Williams is the name on my whiteboard that was flagged from a year ago watching somebody else's tape. So yeah, I need to get into him and see what there is there.
That's so. Your anecdote is, yeah, I saw him play well once. No, that's
my anecdote is I don't know
guy.
if he's good or not yet based off this year, but last year watching somebody else's tape, he jumped off the tape to me.
We need our own show where we go back on that, because Drake London was one of those guys for me. He was one of those like year early for me guys. I'm like, okay, this dude's huge and moves really well for his size. Noted. And then obviously first wide receiver off the board either the following year or 2 years later.
My favorite one of those was Quandre Diggs, who kept jumping off the tape playing cornerback for Texas. When I was going through watching wide receivers, every wide receiver I was watching was having problems with Quandre Diggs. And both me and Ben Stockwell were like, who is this corner from Texas? Because he's making a ton of plays against these receivers we're supposed to be watching. And then obviously, Quandre Diggs goes to the NFL, becomes a really good safety, et cetera. But like, that's I think my favorite one of those like somebody else's tape stories is Quandre Diggs.
I'll just fly through a few more of these lists. Some of these players who are interesting in the chat here. Antoine Powell-Ryland, we call him APR, edge rusher out of Virginia Tech. Former Gator, I mentioned him, I think, very briefly at the end of yesterday's show as far as edge rushers go. And David Walker out of Central Arkansas, 2 edge rushers that we mentioned as the next tier, in that 10 to 20 range or sleeper type. APR, probably a DPR at the next level. Designated pass rush type. David Walker, I know you didn't love him as much as maybe you were hoping, but I still think has that unique body who can cause some problems for tackles as a pass rusher. Charles Grant out of William and Mary, Mike Renner favorite. I think Renner's had a couple of those players that we've mentioned on the show here. He likes Grant quite a bit. Zone blocking scheme, guard or tackle. Loves him as a future Kyle Shanahan type of guy. Jalen Lane out of Virginia. A lot of Virginia Tech guys here. A lot of Tech people. Are my Virginia Tech friends in the chat here pushing their people? Jalen Lane, Aeneas Peebles. Peebles is the defensive tackle who's undersized, can get after the quarterback. He popped a ton at the Senior Bowl. Tough to block given his body type when we're talking about these undersized players. Jalen Lane, really fast. Has some juice at the receiver position. Another Renner favorite that you love now as well, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the running back out of Arizona, was mentioned. We're talking about day 2 hype now, maybe for him. Like he sneaks into that top 8 to 10 running backs for some people here. Luke Kandra, the guard out of Cincinnati, really productive player. I could see him as a sleeper. Ashton Gelati from Louisville, we did not get to mention maybe enough yesterday, but another really productive player. Weird body given how he wins often against guards, but very productive player that I thought was going to be, talked about even more at this point. So I think qualifies as a sleeper. And then JJ Pegues, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. He's the guy that they kept using on direct snaps on offense. And until he ran into the Florida Gators, he was undefeated at that. He was like perfect picking up 3rd and 4th down conversions, but Florida stuffed him a bunch. But pretty athletic defensive tackle. That Ole Miss defensive line, man, they had like 6 dudes who could play, maybe 8. And Pegues was really good as well. So I like him. He's Dane's defensive tackle 22, I believe, right behind CJ West, actually. Dane is sleeping on CJ West, the sleeper. But Pegues, fun player just because anytime you're athletic enough as a defensive tackle to be a ball carrier as often as Ole Miss gave you the ball, that's intriguing to me. Took all those direct snaps, played a lot of fullback. So Pegues is fun.
What about your Will Blackman's suggestion? Joey Hobart from Texas State.
Will Blackman, former NFL player, was at BC as a coach last year. Will Blackman tweeted at me when I asked for favorite sleepers. He had Joey Hobart from Texas State. The what'd you call him? Little Joey, the slot receiver.
He's just like the most stereotypical like white slot receiver you can possibly dream up. Like if you were throwing all of those white slot receivers into a bucket and creating like a prototype, it would look like Joey Hobart.
But he's got some plays down the field. Go check out the highlight reel that Will tweeted at me. He's got some plays down the field. He's got some crazy balance plays, like where he stays up and makes plays that he shouldn't make. Yeah, man, there's something there. He's like a
Chris Hogan comp.
Oh, Hogan. Right? Hogan didn't make sense, but before you know it, he's just like running behind the defense. I like that. Lacrosse player. Is he a lacrosse player? Let's see. Who showed up on the Twitter sphere here. Rutgers running back Kyle Monangai. He did. I don't think we mentioned him on the running back show, but does run really hard. I think I liked him more than I wanted, than I expected. There's all those guys you just had low expectations or whatever, and he popped a little bit for me.
Our guy Greg Bedard was upset we didn't mention him in our running back rankings.
He was. He's a Rutgers homer, and apologies to Greg. We apologize. Someone mentioned Kevin Winston Jr., so I guess he qualifies as a sleeper.
Mm-hmm.
Another player that someone mentioned, Jalen Walker, but different spelling. Jailin, Indiana
Sneaky.
linebacker. Yeah. I don't know where he's going to get drafted, perhaps late. Somebody mentioned the Colorado receivers, LaJohntay Wester and Jimmy Horn Jr.
I think, honestly, any of those Colorado guys could fall into the sleeper bucket. I really like Jimmy Horn Jr. as a sleeper. I think that guy has the ability to basically win all over the place. Like, he's small, undersized, but he's fast, understands defenses, had really good speed. I think he was 4.4 or something at the combine, but there were pro day stopwatches. People were screenshotting them with 4.3s in there for Jimmy Horn Jr. So I like his ability. I think his relative lack of production in college is due to the fact that they spread that ball around a lot. And I think he can be a productive, like, part of a receiving core in the NFL.
I see two people mentioning Arkansas receiver, which could be Isaac Tesla, the speedy receiver, or Andrew Armstrong, the slow receiver. Tesla, unproductive and fast. Andrew Armstrong, productive and somewhat slow. He ran 4.51, but big guy. Armstrong, I would vote for as potentially a sleeper as well. I mean, I over Tesla there. What else we have here? I see Carson Vincent's name, Alabama State tackle, who was at the Senior Bowl as in the developmental bucket. Someone else threw the other Missouri tackle, Marcus Bryant, in the developmental bucket. I see somebody talking about the pathway IPP tight end, Maliko Matavayo. Is that the guy that went to the Chargers, Sam?
No, that's Jordan Pataya.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. I'm getting more familiar with the IPP players here, thanks to you.
A few of them are interesting. So, like, the Maz, I think we were talking about, is the most likely to be drafted. Laki Tazi is this giant nose tackle who was like 350. He was apparently like over 4 bills and has lost like 100 pounds, slimmed down, is just a brick of a human being. The guy that you stood next to, Gennaro Wakeham, is this mammoth offensive tackle. I think his listing is now something like 6'9" and 350 pounds. Like, insane human being.
Yeah, I would love to see him play football. Bigger than me. He's only listed at 6'9". He looked taller than me on the pictures, and I'm 6'10".
Well, he's in, like, sneakers where that's going to add like an inch or two.
Yeah. The internet still says I'm 6'10", so it's got to be the truth. Any others? Cam Jackson, big nose tackle out of Florida. That's a good shout there. Went to the Senior Bowl there, playing in sweatpants, the Senior Bowl.
Yes. That's right.
Ricky
Cam
White
Jackson was the other giant.
That was Cam Jackson, yeah. Now Desmond Watson's in this draft at 464 pounds. I don't think he moves well enough, though, is the problem. He did.
I can't remember.
He did pick up a first down on a handoff, though. They did hand it to him in the bowl game, which was outstanding.
I can't remember where it was, but Renner was talking about him, and he was like, he liked him if he could lose like 130 pounds. It's like
the guy. I mean,
Renner was genuinely.
He gained like 60 pounds at Florida. Like, he came in around 400, which was mind blowing at the time, and it just kept going up and up and up.
Renner was genuinely talking about like throwing him on Ozempic and just having him lose 150 pounds and then seeing what you have, right? It's insane the weight he's carrying.
It's one of those, he's a pretty good athlete for his weight.
Yes.
But like the nose tackle, actually, we as kids, I feel like we were led astray that the nose tackle, it's okay to just be 350 and just sit there and not move.
Well, it might have been then, but it isn't now.
But like when you actually watch Ted Washington and Casey Hampton and Vince Wilfork and all those classic Pat Williams, those dudes moved, man. They blew up blockers, and then they had enough agility to get like B gap to B gap to make a tackle. They made plays, you know.
Yeah,
Desmond,
but like
big snacks, made plays across multiple gaps. Desmond Watson can, like, you can't move him, but he can't move off that spot either, and you need to do a little bit of that.
But there was also like early career, those guys, like that's why they were good, right? But late career, those guys were just large humans that stood there. Like late career, Ted Washington did not move. Late career, Grady Jackson literally just stood there and leaned forward, and it took two people just to stop him collapsing on the ground, and that's how he ate up blocks. Like there was a space in the NFL at that time for guys who literally just occupied space and did not move. That space doesn't exist anymore.
No room. Okay, I got to highlight this name because it was just tweeted at me, and I almost forgot. I wanted to mention him. Aiden Huntington, deep sleeper out of Tulane. I had to look him up for where Dane has him as like edge 44, but he's 6'1", 281. Another David Walker body type. He was kind of playing inside-outside hybrid for Tulane via Kent State, maybe. Like he played at like 3 different schools, I think. Tough to block, though, and he had a crazy workout. He had a really good workout as well. So Aiden Huntington, throw him on the sleeper list as a pass rusher. Another name I did see that the chat threw in there earlier that's come up a few times, Ricky White III out of UNLV. Really good special teamer. I was a little disappointed in his tape because I saw him. He popped a lot just throughout the season in big games, but I thought he just wasn't as clean as a receiver as I thought. But just a baller that, you know, might be a good late addition to your team. Want him on your team type of guy. Yeah, go ahead.
Quantez Mansfield, defensive tackle from NC Central, North Carolina Central. Now, that's another guy who jumped off tape when I was watching somebody else. Now, there's a lot of bad in there as well, but, you know, 6'1", 281 pounds, like undersized undersized, penetrating 3-tech type of defensive tackle. His disruptive plays are really good. Now, there's bad plays in there as well, which are not. But we got, you know, good wingspan and the ability to penetrate and disrupt plays.
All right, man. Anyone else?
No, man.
Just mentioned a ton of players. Appreciate everybody and all the interaction here. Let us know in the comments if you have not gotten your favorite sleeper discussed or put in there. Don't forget your draft bets. I see people are emailing them in as we speak during the show here. Check the mic at the33rdteam.com. So email us. What are we looking for bets? These are your bold predictions. These are the things you want to put your name to. Could be something that we said, like we definitely think this is going to happen and you think it's going to be the opposite. The best ones are generally, you guys are really familiar with your favorite team and their tendencies and what they like to do. So if you want to put your name to that, and if you get it right, if we select it on our bet show next week, we will put some merch on the line. If you guys want to put some coffee on the line, whatever it might be, we'll have some fun with it. So send those emails to check the mic at the33rdteam.com. If you want to tweet at us, you can do that as well. And don't forget draft night. Have you put it into your calendar yet? Draft night. We're going to go live probably at 7. We'll start early. Everyone else might start at 7:45, 8 o'clock. We'll start at 7. We'll start early and just go all night. Live reaction to the draft right here on the Check the Mic YouTube channel. So be sure to hit subscribe. I know most of you aren't subscribed. I still know that's the case. So hit the subscribe button, do the thumbs up, do all the things. We'll be back again on Monday with my mock draft. Might have a bonus show round 2 next week as well. Still discussing that. Big week next week. 2 weeks out from the draft, Sam. We're just 2 weeks away from the NFL draft.
Almost all right, there.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Monday with more Check the Mic.